Shabbat Shalom. I hope that you are all doing as best as you can be during these trying circumstances. Know that I am available to you by phone if you need me, as are our lay leaders. Our incredible lay leadership team of the executive committee and the board are all working overtime in their volunteer capacities to help keep this shul together, even though our building is closed. I wanted to wish a refuah shalema to our president, Nathan Goldwasser, Nisan Yosef ben Zelda V'chanoch, who, after recuperating from the flu, ended up with other health issues and in the hospital. No, it's not the coronavirus, Baruch Hashem. He's on the mend, but he has been managing to still get communications out to the congregation and to meet with me and with the members of the executive committee while he's been ill. I also wanted to extend a special thank you to Matthew Kaufman, third vice president on our executive committee. Matthew is the tech support person for everybody who needs tech support on the leadership team at Temple Beth Am in an unofficial capacity. It's not part of his portfolio as third vice president, and as a volunteer, he certainly doesn't get paid for doing this. But he has been spending countless hours with me, with Ann Gable, with Amy Naftali, trying to set us up on platforms, technology platforms such as Zoom and YouTube, to try to get us to continue connecting to the congregation, even though we can't be together in person. And now for my Devar Torah. Sacrifice, a verb meaning to give up or surrender something of value. Sacrifice is the main topic of this week's Torah portion, VaYikra, as well as of the entire book of VaYikra, Leviticus. Sacrifices in the form of animal and other meal offerings to God are known in Hebrew as korbanot. Like many traditional commentators, Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch rejects the English translation of korban as sacrifice. In Rabbi Hirsch's words, it is most regrettable that we have no word which really reproduces the idea that lies in the expression korban. The unfortunate use of the term sacrifice implies the giving up of something that is of value or of having to do without something of value. At 6 p.m. virtual Kabbalat Shabbat services this evening, David Juris will point out in a bar mitzvah speech that he will give, he will point out that the Hebrew word korban comes from the same Hebrew root as the word karov, which means close. Lahit karev means to try to become close to something or someone else. Korbanot were the means by which our ancestors became closer to Hashem. The Maharal teaches that the purpose of the korban, as indicated by its name, was to snatch a person away from the clutches of transgression, he writes. According to the Maharal, when people transgress, they distance themselves from God. And the goal of the korban was to bring people closer to God again. For most of my life, I have also rejected and resisted translating korban as sacrifice, because I felt that this English word did not quite capture the essence of what a korban actually was and what it meant to our ancestors. But I do have to admit that I have started to reconsider this translation of korban as this pandemic continues and as its harmful effects continue to emerge, not only for those who are ill, but also by those whose lives have been turned upside down as we, take the necessary precautions to stay healthy and to keep others healthy, to keep corona from spreading any further. On March 17th, there was an article in the foreword written by John Hirsch, the father of a 13-year-old boy named Leo, whose bar mitzvah ceremony was scheduled for March 21st. At that time, this was just 1 week ago, although it seems like ages ago, it was still possible for Leo's bar mitzvah ceremony to go on, but some major modifications were being suggested in light of the coronavirus outbreak. The father wrote in the foreword, "A couple of weeks ago, we were in the final stages of preparation for the big day. Leo was so excited, thrilled to be on the bima with the rabbis he'd worked alongside for more than a year, surrounded by the people that love him. We had made all of the decisions for both the ceremony and the celebration. Then the drips of despair started and eventually became a flood. The first drip was just thinking about how we could defend against spreading infection at the party, having the place thoroughly cleaned and hand sanitizer available everywhere. A couple of days later came the realization that having his grandparents and other older relatives from out of town was going to be a problem because they probably shouldn't be flying at this time. Now, you should know that this article was written before the CDC and state government started recommending, and in some states, mandating the cancellation of events of more than 10 people. At that point, when this article was written, the decision-making power, most of the decision-making power, was still left in the hands of individual families and synagogues. Well, Leo and his parents ultimately decided to cancel the bar mitzvah party, but to go ahead with the ceremony, just with a reduced guest list and with guest seating being seated and keeping social distance of 6 feet. In his article, John Hirsch describes his family's decision to cancel the bar mitzvah party. He refers to that decision as a sacrifice. And he writes, "This was a sacrifice that we all, and most of all Leo, had to make. Leo's hard and boring Torah portion is all about sacrifice. Granted, it's about the procedures for making animal sacrifices, but in his Devar Torah, Leo talks about how we all have to make sacrifices, and that's what he's doing. He's sacrificing the fun part of his bar mitzvah so that those he loves, and even people he doesn't know, can be safe." As many of you may know, David Juris's bar mitzvah service was scheduled to take place tomorrow in the sanctuary of Temple Bethel. 2 weeks ago, David was in a similar situation to Leo. But 1 week later, as COVID-19 continued to spread and as more restrictions were imposed upon all of us, it became clear that there was no more choice in the matter. David's bar mitzvah service, as well as his party, of course, had to be canceled. Unlike the cancellation of Leo's bar mitzvah party, this cancellation was not done voluntarily, nor was the cancellation of so many other events that people around the world have had to deal with. Over the past couple of weeks, all of us have been required to give up on some things that we value. And most of these sacrifices were not by choice. Of course, there are the minor inconveniences, such as the closure of restaurants, gyms, movie theaters, bowling alleys, and hair salons. But there have also been major event cancellations, ranging from weddings to graduations, including my daughter Rivka's graduation from high school and my daughter Eva's graduation from college. Not only have family vacations been canceled, but so too have Passover Seders, annual events that many of us look forward to. And that's not all. Funerals in many places are limited to 5 to 10 people, and in some cases it has been a bring-your-own-shovel burial because many cemeteries are only providing one shovel, if that, and are only permitting one person to symbolically put soil in the grave. Even if we are healthy, and Baruch Hashem, thank God most of us are, we and others still have had to give up a lot, and we will continue to have to make sacrifices over the next few months. But amidst all of this gloom and doom, there is a glimmer of light. You know that in ordinary circumstances, we willingly make sacrifices all the time. In order to achieve some of the most worthy things in life, we sometimes have to give up something in order to gain something else. If we want to help other people or organizations by giving tzedakah, we have to give up some of our own money. If we want to get thinner or lower our cholesterol levels, we have to give up certain foods. If we want to get in shape or maintain physical fitness, we have to exercise, thereby giving up time that we might have spent engaged in less strenuous activities. If we want to have a healthy marriage, we have to work at it, and that may mean making compromises at times for the sake of the relationship. In Pirkei Avot, there is a teaching by someone named Ben Hehe, I kid you not. That phrase in Aramaic is lefum tsa'ara agra. According to the pain is the reward. Or as we put it in modern terms, no pain, no gain. Many of the things that are worth doing in this world involve discipline, sacrifice, commitment, and sometimes even a little pain. This is true whether our goal is a healthy body, a successful marriage or career, or spiritual growth. If we are not willing to give up a little of ourselves, nothing worthwhile will happen. Just because our sacrifices in the age of COVID-19 have not been voluntary, just because we didn't willingly give up what we have had to give up, that doesn't mean that we can't gain something from the experience. You know, throughout the book of VaYikra, whether the Torah is talking about free will offerings or ones that were required for atonement or other purposes, all of the korbanot involved giving up something in order to gain something else. What was given up was the animal or produce or whatever you were bringing to the Mishkan as an offering. What was gained? A closer relationship to the Kadosh Baruch Hu, to the Holy One, blessed be God. In his commentary in the Eitz Chaim Chumash, Baruch Levine writes that in ancient times, a person was permitted to bring sacrificial offerings from the flock or herd, from first fruits or from grains, but he could not bring an offering from a fish that he had already caught or from game that he had already hunted. The reason being that for a korban to be effective, the person offering the korban had to give up something that he already owned. And this is consistent with the biblical verse from the book of Shmuel Bet, 2 Samuel, chapter 24, verse 24. V'lo a'aleh la'Hashem Elohai olot chinam. I cannot sacrifice to God burnt offerings that have cost me nothing. So according to this commentary, a person had to give something up. That is, he had to sacrifice something in order to become closer to God. In post-biblical times and after the temple was destroyed, the rabbis provided another way to achieve and maintain closeness with God. And what was that? By calling out to God in the form of personal supplications and prayers. Toward the end of the Ashrei prayer in Psalm 145, the psalmist writes, Karov ad Hashem l'chol karav, l'chol asher yikra'uhu ve'emet. God is close to all who call out to him with truth and sincerity. During this time of disease, social distancing, quarantine, and lockdowns, with all of the sacrifices that have had to be made, every one of us has the opportunity to become closer to God, to improve our spiritual lives. Whether it's by ordering new books from Amazon that can deepen your understanding and appreciation of Jewish life, or by taking advantage of online learning resources, or by participating in virtual prayer experiences, like the Kabbalat Shabbat service this evening at 6 p.m. on Zoom. All of these things can help you get closer to God. These virtual experiences also enable us to feel closer to each other. Since we've had to shut down the synagogue building, I've been leading and participating in daily minyan by Zoom, and it has really felt amazing to see people. It has felt like a social get-together every time we gather virtually to daven. We check in with each other before and after the service. We welcome newcomers, while at the same time, we are enabling people to say Kaddish for a relative's yurtzeit and enable people to express their deepest thoughts to God in a communal context. Even for those who don't usually like to pray, participating in these Zoom minyans enables them to feel connected to other people from the congregation. And of course, since none of us are doing our usual driving around, running around from activity to activity, from place to place, we have more time to stay in one place, which means that we have more time to spend with the people we live with. Or if we live alone, we have more time to make phone calls to connect with friends and family. Let's take advantage of these opportunities. In this time of social distancing, there are many opportunities for closeness to God and to each other. Spending more time alone and not being able to run around Schlepping from place to place also provides us with the opportunity for self-care and self-improvement. And not just in a spiritual sense. Now may be a great time to try out new recipes, as my daughter Eva has been doing, and as my son Ariel has been doing. Now may be a time to read that novel that has been sitting on your shelf forever, or to try yoga or Zumba in an online exercise class, or to go for a walk. Take in the beauty of the great outdoors, breathe the clean air, stop to smell the flowers that will soon be in bloom. I want to conclude this Devar Torah by putting things in perspective. My colleague, Rabbi Michael Gold, pointed out in a recent online posting to rabbis, Anne Frank hid in a crowded attic from the Nazis for 2 years. She had no internet, no television, no telephone, although I understand her family could occasionally listen to the radio. After thinking about her situation, we ought to appreciate our comfortable homes and appreciate the fact that at least we have each other, if not in person, then by phone or by virtual technology. There's a story told by King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech. He challenged his royal jeweler to make him a piece of jewelry that he could wear in any circumstance, on any occasion. A piece of jewelry that would make him feel happy when things were bad, that remind him to be serious when things were good. So the royal jeweler designed a ring. And on this ring, the following words were engraved. Gam ze ya'avor. This too shall pass. And sure enough, the ring met the king's demands. We should look at the COVID-19 pandemic and comfort ourselves with these words. Gam ze ya'avor. This too shall pass. But as much as we're all looking forward to the passing of this global health crisis, let's not let it pass without trying to gain the most we can from this new normal that has become our lives for the time being. Instead of bemoaning what we have had to sacrifice, let us think about what we could possibly gain and how we can grow from this experience. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Shabbat Shalom.